Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline. My guest this evening is Dr. Ramesh Pathirane, Sri Lanka's Cabinet Minister in charge of Plantation and Industries. Very good evening to you, Dr. Ramesh Pathirane, and welcome to Newsline again.
Good evening, Faraz. Thank you for inviting again.
Thank you. Thank you. It's lovely to see you, although it seems it's like years and years, but judging by your appearance, and I don't think it's that long. But tell me, everybody is talking about an export economy, and the theme or the big message was export or perish. So how is our plantation industries doing? What is our income deriving from that export? You know, the most valuable commodity in Sri Lanka at the moment, US dollars, as the doctor will tell you from the governor of the central bank.
Well, despite the difficulties we encountered in 2021 and 2022, Sri Lankan plantation sector and also the industrial sector performed decently. That's why we managed to record 13.1 billion export income, which was the highest ever recorded value in relation to export last year in 2022. Out of that 13.1 billion, plantation sector contributed with 3.77 billion last year, and that was again the highest value from the plantation sector exports. This year, I think we should be able to go to about 3.5 billion due to global recession. Our exports have come down, not only in Sri Lanka, all the other countries are affected, because that it's slightly come down, but still we hope that we would be able to get 3.5 billion in 2023 as well.
And Dr. Pathirane, you know, in terms of value, it's gone up in terms of dollars. But as we all know, lots of the costs have gone up, and so, you know, the prices have generally gone up. If we were to examine it in terms of volume, how are we doing in terms of volume?
Well, tea production came down last year to 250 million kilos, partly because of the fact that there was a fertilizer matter, as all of us knew. But the production of coconut was highest ever recorded figure last year, and we produced 3.2 billion nuts. And the rubber production wasn't that bad as well, and the cinnamon was also, it didn't come down actually. So tea was badly affected, as we all knew. It's because of the fertilizer matter. Fertilizer was not available, and the prices were also very high at that time. But thankfully the prices are coming down. Global prices are also coming down. The Sri Lankan price are also coming down, and it's freely available now. Hopefully this year we will go up to about 275 million kilos of tea production, which is still below the average production.
So that's looking quite good. The potential for tea is, I would say, not fully exploited, is it?
Yeah, you are true, Farah. There are 2-3 factors affecting that scenario. Traditionally, we've been exporting tea for more than 125 years now. Our tea generally goes to traditional importing countries, including Iran, Iraq, Russia, Syria, Turkey. Those are the countries. And they are also, there are a lot of civil unrest in those countries. You know, the last one was this, Russia and Ukraine civil war, and both countries imported substantial quantity of tea from Sri Lanka. One thing was that, and second thing is global tea market is also not expanding. To tell you the truth, it was shrinking last year by 5%. So out of 7 billion export market of tea, we have 1.2 billion. That's nearly 15% of the market. Yes, Kenya, China and India, they produce more tea than Sri Lanka, but our tea still fetch a very high price in the global market. We sell at $4 per kg, whereas Kenya and Indian tea fetch a price of about $2 to $2.5. And on the other hand, what we lack here is that we constantly push the exporters to do the value addition, but it's only 40% of the Sri Lankan tea is currently value added. The rest is going to the world market as bulk tea, which is not the correct way to do that. So we are concentrating on brand building and also value addition, which is the way forward for Ceylon tea.
Some weeks ago, I happened to be in central London, and I was invited into a shop that was unashamedly upmarket, and they specialized in tea. And to my delight and pride, I noticed that there was a variety of Sri Lankan tea or Ceylon tea that sold at a per kilo price of £2,200 sterling. And that brought home to me what it meant to upsell our national drink.
Yes, few Sri Lankan companies do that and they are doing well as well. So, that is the way forward for us. We are constantly pushing the Sri Lankan exporters and the other the main companies, and so we are trying to help the small timers also to come into the niche markets and also to do their brand building, for which the tea board is also supporting constantly. And also we are trying to launch a the campaign rather in European countries to ensure that we capture more market and also possibly inculcate new tea drinking culture in those countries.
And as the cabinet minister in charge of the plantations, what are you doing to the biggest sort of size of the plantation? These are the small holders, aren't they? What is the lot of the small holders? How are you supporting them?
When it comes to tea production, now 77% of the tea is coming from the small holders. Unfortunately, share from the RPCs, that the regional plantation companies, have come down gradually. It has come down to 23% now. So, that is because of the fact that they have not reinvested, not invested for the replantation and new plantation of tea in their lands. If they can't invest, we constantly ask them to go ahead doing replantation, new plantation. If not tea, they should utilize their land for other cultivations. There are other commercial crops as well. So, unfortunately, it has not happened so far, partly because of the fact that possibly they are thinking that their lease term is coming to end in 20 years down the line, but 20 years again is a long period of time. So, that is a very unfortunate situation. Some of the good lands are not utilized properly for any form of cultivation.
And as the minister and amongst you and your colleagues in cabinet, what steps do you hope to take to force these RPCs to produce or basically perish, hand it back to the government?
Well, it is a very difficult situation, to tell you the truth. For us now, last year His Excellency the President also personally mediated in relation to the the food program. So, he specifically instructed these companies to go ahead and cultivate something in their the bare lands. Well, some of the companies they fell in line and they started growing certain other crops as well, including fruits and vegetables, but it has not utilized to its full potential, unfortunately. So, we will have to come out with another plan, for which there is for which I consider this one is it's an obstacle. That is because the agreement that they have reached with the government in 1992, 30 years ago, was a very weak agreement. So, unless you fine tune that agreement, it would be very difficult to push them to do that on the long term basis.
Because obviously Sri Lanka, in terms of our overall export figures, we simply cannot carry passengers, can we? We need people who are actually delivering the goods.
No, that is very true actually. So, that is why we are concentrating more on this, yes, the cultivation is one part of it actually, but the real value comes from the value addition and also the brand building. So, the cultivation is one part. Yes, some of these the major companies, they also do exports as well, but we need to push more people to come and do the exports. So, with value additions and brand building. So, that is a way forward for us. For that, yes, more cultivation is vital and it is required.
And what about, we mustn't forget the people who, the smallholders and also the workers in this valuable industry, the tea industry. What about their remuneration? How is that 1,000 rupee a day going? I mean, that's today's economy. Maybe it's not really worth 1,000 rupees anymore.
Well, there are two sides actually. Tea smallholders were really happy last year. It's because of the two facts. the prices went up significantly because of the relatively lower production. So, say for an instance, in districts like Gol, Mathura, in 2020 they got something like 20 rupee per kg for green leaves, and it went up to about 350 to 400 rupees last year, partly because of reduced production. Then the demand went up, and also because of the rupee depreciation from 202 it went up to about 350, 360. So, they got that benefit, they were really happy. But this year, partly because of the fact that the production is coming up and also the rupee is getting strengthened. So, their value is now it's getting a little lesser. So, they are getting about 180 to 200 rupee per per kg of green leaf. So, they are, it is not a bad price actually considering the economic situation of the country. But when it comes to the plantation workers, none of us can be happy about their living condition. For us, they live in a appalling social and the economic situation. That is why, having understood that, only we try to increase the basic salary to 1000 rupees, and which we have done now. But there was so much antipathy from the plantation companies. So, they went to courts against that decision. So, ultimately we had to mediate with the wages board to ensure that these people get 1000 rupees. 1000 rupees on the other hand is not nothing major these days. So, we have to constantly look at that, and also we have to come into some sort of agreement with these plantation companies. Now, they are not into the collective agreement, but we have to devise a mechanism to ensure on top of that 1000 rupee basic wage they get something extra. For that, you have to devise a mechanism, or otherwise we have to convert these the unutilized lands for something like the outgrower mechanism, so that the workers get extra additional income by their cultivation.
Dr. Pathirane, I can sense and feel, and I'm sure our viewers can, the frustrations of a cabinet minister in trying to de-pickle all these sort of red tape and bureaucracy. What do you say? Well, is it a heavy hand that you need? Are you tired of negotiating with these RPCs and so on? And because at the end of the day, like we said before, nobody can afford to carry passengers, and Sri Lanka, after all, needs those invaluable dollars. What do you say?
Well, it's a difficult time altogether for us, I would say, not only with the RPCs, but also because our own mistakes that we did in relation to fertilizer matter and all that. But on the other hand, I would say I must thank all the stakeholders in the plantation sector. They've done decently well, as I mentioned earlier as well. But there are a lot of things that we can do with the regional plantation companies. I hope they would understand the possibilities and the strengths in this sector and come forward, because they are experienced planters most of the time. These companies have managed some of their business really well. So, they come forward. It's their duty bound to look after their fields, and also they have a responsibility in relation to they have to look after the social and economic lives of the people, those who have worked for them. The unfortunate situation here is, at the time of privatizing those lands in 1992, some 450,000 workers had worked for those lands. Now, it had come down to 150,000, nearly one third left in there. So, they have to look after their employees. If they are happy, only they will continue to engage in the field work. If they do that, only the companies can gain more yields and more profits and prosper. So, I hope that they will understand this equation and look after their employees, and also go ahead with new planting and plantations in their fields.
That's good news. But when you look at it from the plantation, the RPC's point of view, they were given, I think, a 50-year lease back in the 90s, and right now I think they have around 20 years to go. In terms of tea, I think it's about 3 years for a new bush to bear productivity and yields. So, where is the middle path? Where is the moderate path?
Well, then government, then President, his successor Ranjit Singh Premdas had to privatize these lands because of the bad experience we had with the government companies, namely Sri Lanka Plantation Corporation and the Janata Estate Development Board. So, they were grossly mismanaged. That is why he had to take that decision to privatize. But the example from the privatization is also not a smooth one. It is not a smooth solid answer that we have provided. Yes, they have passed 30 years now, 20 more years to go. But I do not think on the long run for us that we would be able to manage these the lands by the government agencies. They are also the corrupt up to a certain extent, and also very they are not productive. So, it is with the private sector people we have to do this business. It is open market economy. Private sector is the, as we always say, it is the engine of the growth. They are contributing more towards the economy of the country. So, they will have 20 years down the line, that is true, but we should be able to extend that, the lease agreement if they are performing well. So, they have ample time to go ahead and do the replanting. As you said, it takes less than 2 years time for a tea bush to to the level of plucking actually, and also you have other cultivations as well. There is so much that they can do. Cinnamon is picking up, so there are the vegetables and fruit productions are also coming up, and we do export as well than yesteryears. So, there is so much of opportunity around. So, hopefully they will understand and grab those opportunities and provide more for the benefit of the country and its people.
Whilst we're in conversation, we hear that a high court in Islamabad in Pakistan has suspended the former Pakistani Prime Minister and cricketer Imran Khan's recent conviction, and I'm sure our news will carry the details of that. And as the world looks and stands in solidarity with Mr. Imran Khan. I don't want to get too much into politics with you because this conversation is very interesting in terms of our money, which hopefully. But what of the agricultural, the wider agricultural prospects, Dr. Pathirane, in terms of paddy cultivation and the other vegetables which we may be able to export to the Gulf and other countries within 4 or 5 hours of our nation?
Yeah, we have good potential in relation to export of this, the fruits and vegetables. As at now, we send a major share to Maldives and also certain Middle Eastern countries, and we are exploring the possibility of sending them to the other European countries and also Australia and New Zealand. The concern here is the freight charges are a little higher to the European countries and also to Australia because of the distance. And also there are certain other difficulties covering this subject in relation to certification and the quality control. But as government and also as the ministry, we are engaging those issues with ITI, that is Institute of Technological Industries, and also with the Industrial Development Board to provide solutions to those the possible exporters of the country. Hopefully, we should be able to expand our exports in relation to those areas as well. But in relation to paddy cultivation, it's only for the domestic consumption. I don't think that we should be able to export anytime soon, but it has come to a decent level. About 70 years ago, we didn't have sufficient paddy cultivation in the country. That's why we had to enter into this the rubberized agreement pact with China. Then that was in 1952. So 70 years ago, we didn't have sufficient paddy to feed our population. So population at that time was 6.3 million, nearly 1/3 of current population. But because of the government subsidies and also with the irrigational development and all that, the development in the water supply schemes and all, we have become self sufficient. We are feeding some or the other, even with difficulties, 21 million people of the country, but we don't have access to export. So that's the issue, but we have potential in relation to fruits and vegetables surely.
And what about the use of the greater use of technology? How can that be sort of wider spread amongst the farming community?
Well, that's a very useful fact that you mentioned. We are trying to introduce technology to tea fields as well, and also at the same time there is a the more frequently the people in the vegetable sector and also in the fruit sector, they are using technology. Now the greenhouse, the cultivations are becoming more important, and also people use different mechanisms with technology for their irrigation as well, and the fertigation, irrigation, all those things are technology driven. There are so many companies in the country, and also they are imparting that knowledge to the farmers at the ground level as well. Hopefully within 5 to 6 years down the line, greater majority of the Sri Lankan farmers would utilize some form of the technological advancements that are freely available in the country.
We noticed that Mr. and Mrs. Bill Gates sort of with their bank accounts, went to South Africa, for example, and they helped to geotag all the lands and take it to a different level so that the agricultural experts were able to tell each farmer that what you can grow best in your plot of land, how much of fertilizer is needed, And so they were able to control the wastage and basically optimize the use of the different fertilizers and pesticides and so on. What are our plans? I mean, I don't know if you can get Mr. Bill Gates, but what are our plans?
Now, those that technology and also those equipments are freely available in Sri Lanka. Now, we had a very good exhibition in July with that's the industry exhibition, where more than 700 the people, industrialists who came and showcased their the products, including those the technological solutions that we could provide for the agricultural fields. So, those are utilized, but not at a large scale, but that is what I said, though that is available now. It is that much easier with the smartphones and the communication development to impart that knowledge, and other applications are also available in Sri Lanka. So, it would not be that long for us to see the results in relation to the utilization of technological advancements in the agricultural and the plantation fields.
I am much fortified by that. What do you see, Minister? What are your challenges? What challenges are you identifying over the next the immediate sort of period?
Well, as I said, for us, since independence, we have spent significant sum of money for the agricultural and irrigational development of the country. But the sad part of is that the contribution from that the paddy, tea and rubber or all the other agricultural sectors are about 8% of the GDP. Whereas, the industrial sector contributes about 28 to 30%, and also the service sector balance 50 to 55%. If you look at the land utilization of the country, our productivity is at a very lower level. But if you see amount of land that we allocated for industrial use, it is actually nearly 0.04% of the total land mass of the country. But we are providing with the small and medium sector entrepreneurs, we are providing 28% of the 28% contribution to the the GDP. Once you consider the land utilization, the productivity is a question. It is at a very lower level when it comes to the tea sector and also all the other paddy sector. So, we have to ensure that we enhance the productivity in relation to the the agricultural produce of the country. That is the way out to most of the people, those who are in the agricultural sector. For that, we need the technological advances, and also that we have to utilize some of the mechanisms available in the market already.
Dr. Ramesh Pathirane, it's been absolutely enjoyable talking to you, listening to some very professional answers. I do wish that we can replicate your talent in the rest of government, where we can hopefully achieve what I call MPH, meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty. But Dr. Ramesh Pathirane, thank you very much for being on Newsline.
Thank you for us. All the best to you as well.
Thank you. And that's the way it was, ladies and gentlemen, on Newsline this evening. Take care. Have a great evening as much as you can. And as always, God bless you all.